Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk, and that is the sound which lets you know that the drinks trolley is in mighty early. Thanks to David, just leave it there. What have we chosen today, Sister Susie?
Well, I've picked up something, maybe I was influenced by watching the rugby, but a 0% Guinness. I had one at the weekend, and do you know what? Very, very tasty.
Excellent. It's a
You
very
wouldn't
good
know
ad.
the difference.
Very good, that's what we like to hear. So that's what we're having. But Gaz is providing today's confession. Thank you, Gaz. Father Simon and his motley crew. Okay, before I make my confession, it's important to say cheers. It's important to say I'm in my 60s, so therefore I should really have known better.
Okay.
My name is Gaz, and back in the day I was quite a stylish chap. Sophisticated clothes, sophisticated taste, which attracted sophisticated women.
Oh, yeah.
If there was a fab and groovy scene, you could guarantee I would be at the centre of it. A dedicated follower of fashion, that was me. My bell-bottoms were the talk of the town.
Oh, yes.
I bet they were. So one bright and sunny day, I was walking out with my latest lady friend, who was called Patricia. She was quite something, I have to say, quite the head-turner. I was very proud to be seen out with her. We were a fabulous couple. It was Saturday, as I recall, and we were probably discussing which swinging hits we'd be listening to at the local record store later. Maybe it'd be the Tremolos, or Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, or maybe the Kinks. Maybe we'd get some tickets to go and see them play live at the Pavilion. Anyway, as we were walking along the harbour front, me and Pat, I was eating a scone. Now, this might seem strange to you, as this isn't what you'd normally call street food, but then we didn't know what street food was back in the day. So it was just me and the scone, probably with jam and butter, no cream, because we didn't have cream in the 60s. Not Cream, the band, you understand, we have plenty of them.
No.
I quite like Ginger Baker, but Pat wasn't having anything to do with them. She was more of a Cliff fan. I think you're distracted now. Anyway, there we were on the seafront, with me and my scone and Pat without a scone. What she did have, Father Simon, was big hair. And plenty of hairspray to hold it in place.
Of course.
She used so much hairspray. I know now that it contains concentrate of a polymer and a plasticizer and luster agent and fragrances, as well as a propellant to spray the stuff out the can. Back then, it just turned her hair rock solid. A Storm Force 10 wind would not shift her barnet. I became aware, as we were walking along the seafront, I became aware of a seagull flapping behind me with its sights on my scone. As it was a little busy, Pauline had stepped in front of me to let more people pass, and this was when I broke off a little piece of the scone and threw it into her big hair. Instantly, two extremely big and very aggressive gulls dive-bombed Pauline, pecking and flapping and pooing, more pecking and more flapping. It was like a scene from The Birds, Father Simon.
Yeah.
Instantly, Pauline went crazy, jumping up and down and screaming and crying as the gulls flew around her. People came out of a nearby shop with a chair so that she could sit down and calm down. It took her a good 20 minutes. What a fuss, I was thinking. I actually remembered at this point that she did have a fear of large birds when we'd been surrounded by pigeons on a previous trip. But anyway, I said nothing and helped console her. I have never let on that it was me that started the fuss in the first place. Do you think I will ever be forgiven for my cruel, and I have to say now that I look back on it with the advantage of my maturity, as a childish prank? Well, the people will decide, but Sister Susie is going to go first.
Well, Gaz, I just think that there's many things wrong with this. First of all, why a scone? Like, how? I don't understand. Did you like cut it in advance and put the butter on, or did you just buy it from a shop and just eat it?
It's unusual
like
to be eating a scone, I think.
Yeah, I just don't really understand. And yeah, you should have had like the proper cream and everything. But anyway, I get distracted by that. But also, you could have thrown it anywhere. You could have like thrown it away from you, and then the birds would have followed it down the seafront, and you could have done that. Why did you have to throw it in her hair? That's really not very nice, and something I can't forgive you, because if I'd have been there, I would have. Oh, it would have been horrible, absolutely horrible. So no, Gaz, no forgiveness from me.
Presumably he did it because it was quite funny, and he wanted
that's
to
my
see
guess.
what. I don't know whether Gaz is together still. with Patricia. But anyway, brother from another
Well,
country.
I mean, it was the 60s. There were no rules in the 60s. You could pretty much do what you wanted, and that included eating a scone, despite not having worked out how you're going to be cutting it up when you bought it, and then maybe chucking it about, and maybe some might have ended up in somebody's hair.
I think he was aiming at her.
Was he aiming at the hair?
Yes.
Well, maybe he was, but it was the 60s. There were no rules, and them coming out with a chair. How's that helping? Doesn't help at all, as far as I'm concerned. And also, he's not clear about whether they ended up. Let's assume they ended up together, and isn't that a story for us all on this Monday morning, afternoon, evening all? So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
I think the 7-0 has gone to your head.
7-0.
Okay, people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Gaz, yes or no, for chucking the scone in his girlfriend's hair for the seagulls to consume? 61054, first word of your message has to be Simon. 61054, forgiven or not forgiven? So now tonight's confession came from Gaz, back in the 60s, walking along a seafront somewhere, threw some of his scone into his girlfriend's, I imagine it was like a big bouffant hair.
Yeah.
And the seagulls attacked, basically, and upset his girlfriend, and he knew that she didn't like large birds anyway. He consoled her, but never let on that it was his fault in the first place. People's verdict is in, here it comes.
So pretty much everyone is not forgiving. Sam in Greenwich, he purposefully, for a laugh, threw a piece of scone into a lady's hair. That's such a mean thing to do, and he knew full well the seagulls would go mad. No forgiveness here. Victoria, not forgiven. I hate pigeons, seagulls, or any big bird, and so not forgiven. Just the thought of it is horrifying. However, Jerry says, forgiven, utterly hilarious, from lacquered to knackered. I hope she build him. Build him.
I mean, it's
Build
not...
of the bird.
No, I got it.
Build.
I just wasn't worth underlining. Anyway, so maybe that's inspired a thought. Maybe you have a confession for us. Gaz has got the smart speaker. If you fancy one, send us your confession. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Yeah. It's radio at 5:46. It's confession time, and it's also fabulously drinks trolley time. Susie's just swiping something from the trolley, from the lower shelf. What did you get from the lower shelf today?
Yes, I've gone and got Japanese vodka called Haku, Haku, distilled with rice. Very lovely in cocktails, but also nice with a mixer as well. Something different
very much.
for your vodka.
Send it so you could gargle with it. Might be a good idea.
Yeah, I probably should, yeah.
Today's confession comes from Larry. I would say this is like an old-style revenge confession, sort of peaked around 1990, 1991.
Oh, really?
Oh,
One of
dear.
those. Anyway, Larry says, Father Simon, Sister Susie, Brother Matthew, the adjudicators of forgiveness, after hearing Tom and Gemma's confessional tale of the surgeon, who was rude and conceited, reminded me of an incident from the late 90s. My wife, Julie, and I attended the wedding of her cousin, Tamsin, who was marrying her third husband, who we shall call Claude. During the speeches, we learnt of Claude's home improvement disasters. They were hilarious. It's my opinion, rules and conventions meant extraordinarily little to Claude. Once he had an idea in his head, nothing would deter him, even if it were to end in complete failure. This is my judgment. Fast forward to the following spring. Unexpectedly, my wife receives a phone call from Tamsin informing us that Claude was doing a bike ride from Land's End to John O'Groats for charity. This was an impulsive idea, and it was becoming clear he had not planned his journey at all. Apparently, Claude spent his first night sleeping in a field in the open without a sleeping bag, where he complained that the sheep kept him awake.
What?
Goodness me.
I know. We're getting the measure of the man.
Yeah.
As we lived in the southwest, Claude would be en route to us next. Therefore, we were instructed to give him a meal and a bed for the night. My wife agreed that we would. Well, Claude turned up at the front door that evening. He asked Julie if she was Tamsin's cousin, as he didn't know who we were. He looked exhausted, and we were surprised to see he only had a small backpack on his bike. It contained a toothbrush and a spare pair of underpants.
Oh,
Brilliant.
After freshening up in the bathroom, Claude came downstairs and handed Julie his pair of underpants that needed washing. Holding them at arm's length, already unforgiven.
Yeah.
Julie quickly placed them in the washing machine. Julie had gone to great trouble that evening to prepare a souffle meal for Claude. As Julie brought the plate of food into the room, he took one look at it and pulled a face. "I can't possibly eat that," he said with disdain. He then added, "I want to ride like the wind, not have the wind." Anyway, he settled for a cheese sandwich, and after telling us he didn't want to have any further chit-chat, he didn't have any time, he took himself off to bed. The following morning, Claude was up early. He took a long shower, using up all the hot water. After what seemed forever, I managed to get into the bathroom to discover he'd used my electric razor to trim his beard. White-haired bristles were scattered all over the wash basin. Well, Father Simon, it was at this point something snapped inside. I could not put up with his behaviour any longer. It'd only been a few hours, but I'd had enough. As I was about to leave the bathroom to tell him what I thought, I noticed his clean underpants on the radiator. A dastardly deed entered my mind, and I rubbed my hands in anticipation of conducting a diabolical scheme. I took off the lid of a bottle, and I gathered up all the small hairy bristles that were in the basin. There were hundreds of them. I then took hold of his underpants and I sprinkled all the bristles inside. The underpants were still a little damp, and the bristles stuck like glue.
I'll bet they did.
It was like a bog brush, in fact.
Oh, right, okay.
Half an hour later, Claude came downstairs, fully dressed for cycling, said he was off. He mounted his bike outside and, without thanking us, cycled off down the road. I must admit to feeling a little disappointed that my prank had not worked. However, months later, Julie received in the post a self-published book, which tells you everything you need to know, written by Claude. It was an account of his journey from Land's End to John O'Groats. We were mentioned in Chapter 2 and referred to as Tamsin's cousins. He still cannot remember our names.
Oh, my goodness.
He described his stay with us as dreadful, but at least he had a roof over his head, unlike his first night with the noisy sheep. It was in the next segment of the book that he wrote about his uncomfortable ride to the Midlands. He said he had uncontrollable itching in his nether regions, or words to that effect. He couldn't stop scratching from Gloucester to Birmingham. As I read that passage in the book, I thought, and that is a result. However, soberly on reflection, it was childish behaviour on my part. So, Father Simon, I wish to repent. I wish to apologise to all those motorists who passed Claude on his bike, who may have been distracted, seeing him with one hand on his handlebars and the other hand.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, you know, that's just the way this story has gone. Nice crossfade.
Nice fade, yeah.
Very
Lovely.
good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Anyway, it's Larry's story of revenge. We had many worse than those in 1991, let me tell you. But anyway, comparatively mild, I'd say. Sister Susie, what do you say?
Well, Larry, obviously, Claude wasn't a very nice person. I think we all agree that he just wasn't very nice, and he was rude, and he was ungrateful, and, you know, you could say he might deserve it. However, it was a bit mean, and it was a bit disgusting, and you know, he might have only had one pair of pants, but maybe you shouldn't have put the bristles in it. So I don't think I can forgive you, because I just think it was a bit mean and a bit of a prank, which I don't really like. But he didn't sound like a very nice person, so I kind of want to forgive you just for that reason.
Oh, go on. It's clearly what you clearly want to. It was the fact that he walked down and handed his undergarments
Indeed.
to
Larry's wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, so are you forgiving or not?
Yeah, actually, for the underpants alone, yeah, I'm going to forgive him.
Brother from another.
I think we're all going to forgive here because of those transgressions in the head. I mean, the not eating the souffle, the handing someone your underpants to clean and then leaving them on the radiator. That's not, you don't do that in someone else's house. And also using up all the hot water in the shower. Better be in and out of that shower within 5 minutes, or else I am knocking on that door.
Done this speech before.
Stop using all my hot water. So yeah, no, I'm definitely going to forgive it, if only for the line didn't stop scratching from Gloucester to Birmingham. I'll bet he didn't. Yes, definitely forgiven.
People's verdict, please. 61054. First word is Simon. Do you forgive Larry? Yes or no? I suspect the answer is yes, but provide us your reasoning. That would be a fabulous thing. Forgiveness or not? 61054. First word is Simon. However, you might remember we did a confession from Larry with interesting revenge on a cousin's new husband who was pretty odious.
Yes.
And left a lot of his beard in the basin. and then Larry put all of this beard in his underpants.
Yes.
Thus ruining his cycle from Gloucester to Birmingham. Anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So everyone is forgiving. Lizzie says, crying with laughter, yes to Larry, no to Claude. Drick says, forgiven. I currently live in South Africa, and we seem to be a free holiday accommodation for people we know and have to pay for everything. I wish I could do something like that. Well done. Rachel says, excellent confession. Larry is completely forgiven. As for Claude, forget the souffle refusal, pants drying, and using all of the hot water. Anyone who sends out a self-published book about himself unsolicited deserves itchy underpants.
It may well be that has provoked a thought in your mind, and you do have a confession for me after all. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And asking you to consider whether you have a confession that you'd like to send us. And if you do, then you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And as we say that, Drink's trolley wanders past. Thank you, David. Just leave it there. What have we swiped from there today, Susie?
I've swiped a nice bottle of Monkey Shoulder, which is a blended whiskey, perfect for mixing, but I'll probably have it with some honey and lemon later on.
What
Good
with
idea.
everything, yes. Today's confession, it's another old-fashioned confession for connoisseurs of the early 90s. This one comes from Judy, Father Simon and his Forgiving Collective, especially Sister Susie, who I'm sure will support me in this.
Oh, right.
Well, we'll find out. It has been some 30 years since the event in question took place, when I was at the time living with a policeman who had been there for a number of years. We were regular members of the local golf club and often played with another couple who, as it happened, were in the process of getting divorced. It was over a period of several months that a number of coincidences began to happen, and I had my suspicions that my partner, the policeman, at the time, seemed to be hanging around this divorcee lady on the golf course, known from here on after as the other woman.
Okay.
They were becoming just a little bit too friendly for my liking. For instance, his mobile phone bill had her phone number all over it like a rash.
Oh dear.
And when I questioned him about this, why he was contacting her every day when walking our dog, he made some weak excuse about golf and then promptly changed all future bills to be redirected to his works address. Guilty as charged, my lad. Mm-hmm. Even after doing so, I once opened his bill that was in his briefcase some months later to see that her phone number was still frequently on there. On another occasion, he'd left his phone at home after leaving for the golf club. He'd received a voicemail message from the other woman saying how much she had missed him whilst he'd been away, and she was going to go to the golf club to practice her swing that afternoon.
Okay.
Anyway, so I
Come on.
I took his phone and I went immediately to the golf club to find them both having a Campari together on the terrace. Not a euphemism. I wasn't too polite when I saw them both, and I threw his phone at him to say that I could see the practicing was going well. They looked embarrassed, but they were both in denial and said that I was reading too much into things. Really, pal? And so it continued. Rumours and gossiping had started at the golf club about the amount of times they were seen together, but I could not prove my suspicions, and this just left me beginning to wonder if I'd made the whole thing up in my head. In the weeks that followed, we continued to play golf together, but still the coincidences were happening. And on this particular day, the golf club held a large men's and ladies' competition. It's a large competition, not a competition for large men and ladies. With the majority of members playing at some point in the day. I was playing in the lady captain's team around midday, whilst my partner and his team were in the penultimate group, which was immediately followed by the other woman and her team at around 1:30. Because of the competition, the club was very busy with so many teams playing, starting early in the morning to get everyone in. The starting times and teams were displayed on the notice board outside the changing rooms. I arrived at the golf club and went in and got changed, meeting the rest of my team. I then went to have a look at the teams and tee times displayed on the notice board. What I saw next was enough to upset me for the rest of the day, as pinned to the notice board on top of the tee times was a card which was addressed to me. Yes, me. Inside the card, the message was handwritten. Dear Judy, name changed to protect the innocent, I just wanted to let you know that your partner, name given, and the other woman, name given, are still seeing each other. I think it's only fair that you should know that they are both cavorting about in a most disreputable way. Wow. It was unsigned. In a daze, I went back to the changing rooms and told the lady captain what I had just seen. I'd left the card pinned to the notice board. She immediately removed the card and went with haste to see the club secretary to inform him of my distress and her disbelief what someone had done. The furious club secretary informed her that he would have words with my partner and tell him that on no account did he want this kind of thing going on at his golf club. I somehow managed to play the match, and I could tell that the card had been seen by many people, as there was a lot of whispering and nudging going on from the members when I returned to the clubhouse for the prize giving. My somewhat embarrassed partner was spoken to forcefully by the club secretary, and needless to say, he didn't come into the clubhouse after his match and went straight home ready to face the music upon my return. So you may be wondering where the confession lies in this sorry tale of deceit. Well, the answer is, Father Simon, that the pinned card on the notice board was pinned there by me. And it was pinned there by me that day, and the only person who would have known it was me was the anonymous person who sent me the card to my home address a few days earlier.
Ah.
Oh.
Could it have been the other woman hoping to split us up once and for all? Well, who knows? I have no regrets about what I did. Putting the card on display for all to see, and I know there would have been a lot of people who had a look, as it was on the board for at least half an hour. I certainly don't seek forgiveness for embarrassing my partner and the other woman, but I seek forgiveness from the lady captain and the club secretary for using them to get my own back on the way they both had treated me over the previous few months. I can report that not long after this, there was yet another incident from which there was no return, and I have since found somebody else. And I am happily married with a family, but have decided to give the golf clubs a rest.
Yeah.
Just for now.
I would too.
So the card on the board was genuine, sent to Judy's house, but it was Judy who'd pinned the whole thing up. Which is basically the form of the basis of a confession. Oh,
Wow, that
was
dark.
a 180 degree. I've been practicing that as well.
Oh, 10 points.
I've got my own set. It's not working very well. Anyway, Sister Susie, what do you say to Judy?
Well, Judy, I think you handled that rather well, really. I think your other half or your ex-other half sounds like a wrong-un, and definitely I think that was a great way to try and embarrass him. And you know what? It's International Women's Day. I would have forgiven you anyway, Judy, because I just think he sounds like an idiot. But especially on International Women's Day, I'm going to stick with you and think you're completely forgiven. He deserved it.
She certainly was very suspicious. So when the phone was left, to access the phone and to find the answer phone message.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not. Maybe she shouldn't have done that bit.
Anyway, let's just check in with the moral
overall
barometer
forgiven.
of the nation.
No problem with accessing
brother
the
from
phone,
another
frankly.
gutter.
I'm gonna get, what a twist that was. Didn't see that one coming. I think you dodged a bullet there, Judy. As Suze points out, sounds like a wrong-un with his predilection for Campari. What's that about?
Drinking on the terrace.
Oh dear, oh dear. A little bit too fabulous for
very
my
nice.
tastes. So yeah, no, I'm going to forgive. I mean, what business is it of the golf club to enter into the different machinations of love?
Ooh.
If that's what we're
getting
going to do, it is
complicated now.
getting very complicated, isn't it? And so I am going to forgive. Just, International Women's Day. There you go.
That's right.
Forgive him for that.
And because he drank Campari.
And Campari.
It's the
also.
people's verdict. Please, do you forgive Judy, yes or no, on the text 61054. We had another confession just before the 6 o'clock news. It involved Judy, an unfaithful partner, the other woman, what else? An anonymous card, and the golf club notice board. All produced this reaction with the people's verdict. What's it look like?
Everyone is forgiving tonight. May in Surrey, her ex sounds like a dreadful person. I'm glad to hear she's got a new man in her life. Hopefully, no more having to search through answer machines. Luke C says, totally forgive Judy. The infidelity of your ex-partner is on a par with the repellent ability to drink Campari. Definitely a wrong-un.
That seems to be a sure indicator of someone who's a cad and a bounder.
Indeed. And James finally says, I reckon she should have packed up his clubs and sent him off with a tea in his ear long ago.
A tea in his ear?
Tea in his ear?
I mean,
Ish.
Okay, well, we'd like a confession from you. If maybe that story sparked a thought in your mind. Maybe you fancy a smart speaker. Write it out, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Welcome to the confessional. Sister Susie is taking an unwise day off, during which her place is taken by Sister Holly, who's just stepping up. Are you a novice or are you a fully fledged sister?
I think I'm a novice, yeah.
All right, okay, well, let's see how we go. My guess is that you're quite unforgiving and stern, but we'll find out. And no drinks trolley, obviously.
No.
Sister Susie doesn't approve of that kind of thing. Today's confession comes from P.C. Dixon, as in Dixon of Dock Green.
Of course, yeah.
Father Simon and the Confessional Collective, please forgive me. After finishing my schooling in central London, I decided to join the police in London. I'm not asking for forgiveness just yet. One of my duties was to police London football matches. Each game was given an operational name, so a game at Arsenal would be called Operation Angel, for example.
I never knew this.
Apparently that's true. Is that because of the angel?
Probably. Oh,
the
yeah.
angel in Islington, maybe.
Or because Arsenal begins with an A.
Could be that. Anyway, who knows? This detail is not provided by P.C.
No,
Dixon. I'm going to talk to you about one of those games. Several of us from Chelsea Police Station, where I was based, were detailed to police a match at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club,
Oh, right.
making, I believe, their only appearance in confession history. In fact, their appearances in confessions are about the same as in cup finals. Anyway, it was a hot afternoon way back in the 1970s. Officers were taken to and from the ground in ancient green buses. The game ended in harmony. My colleague, P.C. Callahan, and I asked if we could make our own way home. This was approved. We were in full uniform. P.C. Callahan and I jumped on a Northern Line tube and started to make our way to Goodge Street Station. I wanted to show P.C. Callahan the deep air raid shelter used by General Eisenhower during World War II. This station is very, very deep. There are 138 steps from the top to the platform. At that point, I was a lot slimmer than I am now. In fact, I've put on 12 inches onto my waistline since then.
Right.
We both started ascending the stairs rather than using the lift. Being a lot fitter, I thought it would be fun to run up the stairs as fast as I could and then hide at the top. The station was not really properly lit as it is now, and I ascended the stairs quickly with all that a police officer has to carry with him. I hate people who run up the stairs.
Yeah.
No.
Showing off.
Yeah.
As I arrived at the summit of the winding staircase, I found a dark recess and decided to jump out on P.C. Callahan and scare him, as you do as a warranted police officer. I heard P.C. Callahan puffing and wheezing and getting ever closer. I drew out my truncheon and I placed it above my head, ready to make the move. And as soon as I heard him round the corner, I jumped out onto the top step and yelled with gusto. P.C. Callahan duly screamed. When I looked closely, however, it was not P.C. Callahan.
No, of course not.
I had
Right.
scared. It was a woman in her 70s who clearly had clearly overtaken P.C. Callahan on the stairs.
Yeah.
That's how unfair he was. But this lady had fainted, fallen backward in spectacular style, slipped a few steps, came to a halt in a heap. P.C. Callahan duly arrived, the very unfit P.C. Callahan, overtaken by an old woman, duly arrived some seconds later. We took her to Middlesex Hospital. She was really okay, Father Simon. Mercifully for me, she had no real recall of the frightening event. She thought she had merely fainted at the top of the stairs and was grateful for our care. After a very short time in accident and emergency, she was released. The least I could do was to pay for a taxi to return her home, which was in very smart West London. I hoped that would be the end of the matter, but it wasn't. A week later, she wrote to the police station, thanking us for our caring assistance. A copy of the letter was given to me. It had the lady's details on, so I rang her, inquiring after her welfare. Being ever more grateful, she invited P.C. Callahan and I to her house for a meal as a special thank you for looking after her. We were riddled with guilt. Still, it was it was a sumptuous meal, and we left with gratitude, praying that the lady would not have a miraculous recall of that mischievous episode that sparked it all off in the first place. There is one thing left of this tale, Father Simon. On the way out of this lady's flat, I fell down some of the wrought iron stairs. which imprinted a divot in my chin. No, shin, sorry. Anyway, an easy mistake to make. A divot in my shin. A constant reminder that I should not frighten members of the public at tube stations, especially when I am in full police uniform, and I heartily ask forgiveness after a long passage of time. Very smooth fade, I think.
I thought so. Very
We turn the voice of responsibility today, that role played by Sister Holly. What do you say, Sister Holly?
Well, the thing is, the thing that I thought was interesting is when you said, oh, we, as in you and PC Callahan, felt very guilty. What did PC Callahan do here? He was just walking up the stairs slowly. He wasn't running. Incredibly slowly. The old lady overtook him. I felt really sorry for the old lady. I know she didn't realise what happened, but I think it might have been one of those traumas which actually, you know, she didn't feel at the time, but who knows, maybe in a few days' time she felt it. And so for that reason, I think running up the stairs, that's a bad move. You might trip, not good. And so not forgiven, I have to say.
I told you she'd be harsh.
Very harsh.
And very unforgiving. Brother from another.
Well, I'm going to say everything worked out fine in the end. Old lady, no memory of the incident.
She fell down some stairs.
I mean, she fell down the stairs, obviously, but apart from that, she was fine giving people meals. All very good in her smart West London abode. So, you know, that worked out okay. Turns out PC Callahan could have done with trying to pass a few more fitness tests, you know, if you're getting overtaken on the stairs by the 70-year-old woman. But it all worked out fine in the end, so definitely forgiven.
Everyone's fine, are they?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, it's the people's verdict. It's the one that counts. Do you forgive PC Dixon or not? On the text, please, 61054. You start your message with Simon. We had a PC Dixon confession going back to the 70s when he and PC Callahan were at Goodge Street tube station in London, and for a prank, PC Dixon jumped out at the top of a very high winding staircase on PC Callahan. Except it wasn't PC Callahan. It was a little old lady who had overtaken PC Callahan, who fainted, but she remembered nothing and just thanked the police for all their sterling work. The people's verdict is in, and here it comes.
So not forgiven, says James Imbued. Why was PC Dixon running up the stairs? What a ridiculous idea. Not forgiven for that alone. Jean and Chiswick, though, says forgiven. Ultimately, it all worked out in the end. Him hurting his shin, I would call that karma. And Helen from Fleet says
and chin as well.
And chin as well, as it turned out. And Helen from Fleet says, not forgiven. I reckon the old lady knew full well it was him that had jumped out and frightened her. I reckon she invited them round to dinner deliberately to make them feel guilty.
Yes, and maybe she enjoyed their company.
Indeed. Yeah.
Anyway, who knows what was going on? Anyway, it's strange. So, if you have a confession, we would like to exchange it for a smart speaker. How's that sound?